Imagine standing in the middle of a posh hotel lobby, wearing your best suit, feeling like the boss of the world. And then, pop, it's just a balloon. To everyone else in the room, it's a celebration, a happy moment for a new family. But to you, it sounds like a cannon. It sounds like a death sentence. That is the exact moment Debbie Webster's world finally shatters this week, and honestly, it is one of the most gut-wrenching things we've ever seen on the cobbles. Have you ever had a moment where your own brain just completely lied to you? Because that's what we're looking at here. A woman whose mind has become a war zone where the past and the present are fighting for control. We have to talk about why this is happening now, because it isn't just a bad day at the office. It's the result of a terrifying medical diagnosis meeting a week of pure, unadulterated trauma. Let's look at the setup here, because the context is everything. Debbie has spent decades building this image of being the toughest person in Weatherfield. She's the one who doesn't blink, the one who always has a comeback, and the one who built an empire on pragmatism. But behind that glamorous facade, things are falling apart in a way she can't paper over anymore. My take on this? It's actually the most relatable she's ever been, because we're finally seeing the woman behind the business suit, and she is terrified. She's fighting a two-front war right now. One against her early-stage dementia and the other against the literal ghosts of a gunshot mystery that is rocking her family. Why did the writers choose now to break her? It's because the garage incident acted like a psychological tripwire, pushing her cognitive decline into high gear. The week starts with Debbie waking up from a nightmare that is so realistic it leaves her gasping for breath. This isn't just a dream. It's a visceral replay of the violence at the garage involving a firearm. Think about the psychology here. For a second, even though she wasn't the one holding the gun, the creeping dread of the unknown has polluted her subconscious. Emotional insight tells us she feels completely isolated right now. Her partner, Ronnie, is busy trying to plan a Spain surprise for her, but she doesn't even know if she wants to go because she's drowning in confusion. Don't you think it's tragic that the people who love her most are busy planning her joy while she's literally reliving a murder attempt in her head? Then we have the Tracy Barlow factor. If there was ever a character designed to pick at a fresh wound, it's Tracy. They get into a fight over a simple flower order, a routine mistake, but Tracy goes for the jugular. She blames Debbie's dementia for the mix-up. This is a devastating blow to Debbie's ego. For a woman who prides herself on being sharp, being told she's slipping is the ultimate insult. In my opinion, this is Tracy at her absolute cruelest, because she's vocalizing Debbie's deepest fear. It sets the stage for the professional tailspin that follows. Do you think Tracy actually knows how much damage she's doing, or is she just being her usual self without a second thought? The pressure reaches a boiling point at the hotel during a gender reveal party. Debbie is already on a hair trigger of anxiety. She sees the balloon order and knows the baby is a boy, and in a moment of cognitive confusion, she just blurs it out to the parents. It's a heartbreaking moment that strips her of her dignity in front of everyone. This isn't just a slip of the tongue, it's proof that her condition is taking over. The silence in that room must have been deafening. She didn't do it to be mean. She just lost the ability to filter her thoughts. Ryan tries to fix it, but the damage is done, and then comes the pop. That celebratory balloon bursts, and for Debbie, it's not a party anymore, it's a crime scene. Her mind teleports her back to the garage, back to the gunshot. This is a profound emotional breakdown happening in public. Psychologically, she's experiencing a total collision of PTSD and dementia. It's painful to watch because she's a survivor who can't move on. The fear is showing up at the worst possible moment. You have to wonder, after a public collapse like this, can she ever go back to being the boss everyone respected? While Debbie is falling apart, her friends are nursing hangovers and buzzing about Spain. Sally, Glenda, and Christina are so excited, but they've all switched off their phones to keep the mood high. This is the ironic tragedy of the week. By trying to protect her from distractions, they've actually cut her off from her anchors. She's trying to call Ronnie for help, and he's not answering. It makes her feel profoundly isolated in a room full of people. Do you think it's a mistake for them to push this holiday on her when she's clearly not coping? We also have to talk about the mess at the garage, because that's what started all of this. Kevin found a video on Tyrone's phone, A video of Carl sabotaging the brakes on Kevin's car. Think about that rage for a second. Kevin realizes his own son-in-law tried to kill him. He storms over there with a wrench, and Carl, being cornered and desperate, pulls out a real gun. This is the nightmare Debbie is reliving. The fact that Ronnie and Tyrone knew about the sabotage and kept it a secret just adds to the betrayal. Kevin refuses to bury the hatchet because his life was at risk. When Ronnie tries to grab the gun, it goes off. We still don't know who was hit, but the sound of that blast is what's echoing in Debbie's head. Now, the fans have been a bit baffled by some missing scenes lately. Debbie won her appeal and got out of prison, but we never saw the court case. Some people on Reddit are calling it convenient for the plot, and I get why they're annoyed. But if you think about it, skipping those scenes actually mirrors Debbie's dementia. She's back, but there are gaps in the timeline, both for us and for her. It forces us to focus on her internal struggle rather than the legal paperwork. Was it a mistake to skip the trial, or do you think it makes her current confusion feel more real to the audience? Over in the Windass house, things are just as tense. Maria is convinced Gary is having an affair with Sarah because she caught them in an emotionally charged embrace. But we know the truth. It's not romance. It's a murder cover-up. Gary is trying to hide his involvement in Theo Silverton's death. He tells Sarah they have to delete all their messages. To Maria, that looks like cheating. To us, it looks like a man drowning in his own lies. Gary books a surprise holiday to ease his guilt, but Maria isn't buying it. She thinks the holiday is a distraction. The irony is that Gary is trying to protect his family from prison, but he's destroying his marriage in the process. Is there any way for them to come back from this level of secrecy? And then there's Sam. He's been having hallucinations of Roy telling him not to trust anyone. He actually attacked the real Roy with a stool because he couldn't tell what was real anymore. Now he's asking to see Roy for comfort. Sam and Debbie are really mirrors of each other this week. Both of them are struggling with a reality that is shifting beneath their feet. When Sam looks for Roy, he's looking for a safe place in a world that feels dangerous. It's such a quiet, emotional thread that shows how much the street is struggling with mental health right now. Betsy has some big news too. She's been offered a place at the London College of Fashion. This should be a happy moment, and Carla is thrilled for her. But for her mom, Lisa, it's complicated. It's that classic parent fear of losing the closeness. Betsy is looking toward a future of freedom and ambition, while Debbie is being trapped by her past and her diagnosis. It's a perfect contrast. While one woman is gaining the world, the other is losing her grip on it. Kid is also making moves, buying an engagement ring for Sarah. He has no idea that Maria is suspicious or that Sarah's caught up in a murder investigation. It feels like he's building a house on a foundation of sand. If he finds out the truth about Gary and Sarah, that ring is going to feel like a pair of handcuffs. Do you think Kid is genuinely in love, or is he just looking for a way to tie himself even deeper into the life of the street? Looking ahead, things are only going to get worse for the Websters. Carl is still under Fiona's thumb, and she's given him 1 week to do as she says, or his life won't be worth living. Debbie overhears this, and it's going to push her even further into a state of incandescent rage and terror. Prediction time. I think Debbie's public breakdown at the hotel is going to be the turning point where her family realizes she can't manage the business anymore. She's gone from being the protector, taking the fall for Carl's crash, to the one who needs constant protection. It's a devastating shift for such a powerful character. The psychological core of this entire week is the struggle to hold onto the life you built. Whether it's Debbie fighting her mind, Gary fighting his past, or Sam fighting his hallucinations, everyone is trying to keep their world from collapsing. Sue Devaney's performance is being praised because she captures that exact vulnerability. She still has that stubborn, sharp Debbie energy, but now it's mixed with heartbreak. It ensures the story isn't just sad. It's about a fully rounded human being facing the impossible. The balloon pop wasn't just a jump scare for the audience. It was the sound of Debbie's dignity being stripped away in front of her peers. The emotional consequences here are huge. We aren't just watching a soap plot. We're watching a devastating medical diagnosis play out in the most public, humiliating way possible. It makes you wonder, who can she actually trust now? Tracy has already weaponized her condition, and the hotel guests have seen her at her most fragile. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a beautiful hotel lobby. You've got the sharp suit on, the perfect hair, and you're finally back in your element as the boss. Then, out of nowhere, you hear a sharp, violent pop. To everyone else in the room, it's just a balloon.
It's a party. But to you?
It sounds like a cannon going off. It sounds like someone just lost their life. That is the exact moment we see Debbie Webster finally shatter this week. And honestly, you have to ask yourself, has the stress of the cobbles finally broken her for good? Today, we are going deep into the absolute carnage at the Chariot Square Hotel. We're looking at how trauma, family secrets, and a devastating medical diagnosis have all crashed together in a way that's going to change Coronation Street forever. This isn't just a story about a bad day at work. It's a story about a woman whose own mind has turned into a war zone, and I want to know if you think there is any coming back from this. Was this a simple mistake, or was it the final sign that the old Debbie Webster is gone? Let's talk about the setup because the context here is everything. Debbie has spent years being the toughest person in Weatherfield. She is the woman who built an empire on being sharp, practical, and never letting anyone see her blink. But behind that glamorous business facade, something is collapsing. We're watching her fight a two-front war right now. On one side, she's dealing with the early stages of dementia. On the other side, she's being haunted by the literal ghosts of a gunshot mystery that is tearing the Webster family apart. My take on this? This is actually the most relatable Debbie has ever been. We are finally seeing the cracks in the armor she's worn since 1984. Why did the writers choose this moment to break her? I think it's because the trauma of the garage standoff acted like a psychological tripwire. It didn't just scare her. It pushed her dementia symptoms into a whole new level of creeping dread. The week starts with a nightmare that is so realistic it leaves Debbie gasping for breath. Think about that for a second. She wakes up shivering, reliving the moment a gun was pulled in her family's garage. For anyone else, a nightmare fades. But for someone with a brain that's already struggling to process reality, the fear doesn't stop just because her eyes are open. Emotional insight tells us she feels completely alone right now. Even though she's surrounded by friends, nobody truly understands that her mind is a crime scene. The funny thing is, her friends think they're helping. Ronnie, Sally, and the girls are all buzzing about a Spain surprise. They are laughing and nursing hangovers while Debbie is drowning in a sea of confusion. Don't you think it's a bit tragic? They are literally planning her joy while she's reliving a murder attempt in her head. Then we get to the confrontation with Tracy Barlow. If there was ever a character designed to kick someone while they are down, it's Tracy. They get into a fight over a flower order, a simple, boring business mistake. But Tracy doesn't just argue. She goes for the jugular. She aggressively blames Debbie's dementia for the mix-up. This is such a devastating blow to Debbie's ego. Imagine being a woman who prides herself on being the smartest person in the room and being told you are slipping. In my opinion, this is the cruelest thing Tracy has ever done. She isn't just being mean, she is vocalizing Debbie's deepest, darkest fear. Psychologically, this strips away Debbie's dignity right before she has to host a high-stakes event. It puts her in a tailspin of panic before she even walks into the lobby. Have you ever had a moment where someone said exactly what you were afraid of? That's what happens here, and it's why she loses her grip so fast. The pressure at the hotel is absolutely suffocating. Debbie is hosting a lavish gender reveal party, which is basically an event built on secrets and surprises. This is the worst possible place for her to be. She's seen the balloon order. She knows the baby is a boy, and because her mental filters are failing, she just blurs it out to the parents. It is an awful mistake. The silence that follows must have been unbearable. She hasn't done it to be nasty. She just can't paper over the gaps in her mind anymore. Everyone in that room is looking at her, and she knows they aren't seeing a boss. They're seeing a patient. Analysis tells us this was her breaking point. She was trying so hard to prove her diagnosis didn't define her, and then she goes and ruins the most important moment of these parents' lives. How would you react if you were in that room? Would you feel sorry for her? Or would you just be angry? And then the pop happens. The celebratory balloon bursts, and for Debbie, it's not a party anymore. In that split second, her brain doesn't stay at the hotel. It teleports back to the garage. The pop becomes a gunshot. The guests become threats. She has a total emotional breakdown in front of everyone. This is where trauma and dementia collide in the most public, humiliating way possible. Deep commentary here. She survived the actual nightmare at the garage, but this episode proves that survival doesn't mean moving on. The fear is still there, living in her cells, and it's showing up at the worst possible time. My heart honestly breaks for her here. She's trying so hard to be strong, but she's fighting a war she literally cannot win. We have to talk about the Spain escape because it highlights the isolation of being sick. Sally, Glenda, Bernie, and Christina are all ready to go, and Glenda insists they all switch off their phones. They want to keep the mood high and free from domestic distractions. But psychologically, this is the worst thing they could do to Debbie, by cutting her off from the outside world. And from Ronnie, who is her only real anchor, they are feeding her paranoia. She's trying to call him, but her calls go unanswered. She feels like she's being abandoned in a room full of people who are cheering. Do you think her friends are being selfish, or are they just genuinely clueless about how bad she's doing? The irony is that while they are planning a holiday to help her, the secrecy is actually making her feel like her reality is shifting beneath her feet. T.O. understand why she's reliving the garage incident. We have to look back at what actually happened. Carl has been doing dodgy work for Fiona, and Kevin finally found the proof. Kevin was looking at a video on Tyrone's phone, expecting to see a harmless clip of Ruby, and instead, he found footage of Carl sabotaging the brakes on his car. Can you imagine that incandescent, blinding rage? Knowing your own son-in-law literally tried to kill you. Kevin storms over to the garage, and the whole situation explodes. Ronnie and Tyrone hurry over, and Kevin realizes they both knew about the sabotage and kept it a secret. Ronnie tries to lock everyone in to force them to bury the hatchet for Debbie's sake. But Kevin is past the point of reason. He picks up a wrench and advances on Carl. This is where the gunshot mystery comes from. Cornered and desperate, Carl pulls out a real gun. The room goes silent. Kevin, fueled by adrenaline and convinced the gun is a fake, reckless lunges for it. He wrestles it away and points it back at Carl. Ronnie screams at them to stop and throws himself into the struggle to get the weapon away. In the chaos, a finger slips and a shot is fired. That deafening, echoing sound is what is currently destroying Debbie's sanity. Even though the screen faded and left us wondering who was hit, the damage to the Webster family was already done. Who do you think is more to blame here? Kevin for attacking or Carl for bringing a lethal weapon into a garage? There's also been a lot of talk about the missing scenes regarding Debbie's appeal. Fans have been completely baffled because she was in prison one minute and back on the street the next. The soap skipped the entire court case where she won her appeal. Some viewers on Reddit called it convenient for the plot, and I get the frustration. But if you look at it from a psychological layer, skipping those scenes actually mirrors what Debbie is going through. There are gaps in the timeline. Things are happening that she doesn't fully understand. It forces us, as an audience, to feel her confusion. We don't know the exact grounds of her release, just like she is struggling to keep track of her own history. Was this a clever narrative choice to show her cognitive decline, or was it just lazy writing? I'm leaning towards it being a brilliant way to make us feel as unsettled as she does. While Debbie is falling apart, the rest of the street is dealing with its own pressure cooker of tension. Let's look at Gary Windass. He is desperately trying to hide his connection to the murder of Theo Silverton. He and Sarah Platt were caught in an emotionally charged embrace in an alleyway, and Maria saw the whole thing. Of course, Maria thinks they are having an affair. But we know the truth. It's about criminal liability and deleted text messages. Gary books a surprise holiday for the